Can you remember what it was like getting you called up or your debut for Team GB?
Yeah, a little bit of dread at times, and fear. But once the race starts, for me, it was always a very simple process. Right, well, I can either do it or I can't. And the pain, the kind of hurt doesn't really come into question at that point. You're just going as hard as you can. If the guy next to you can go faster, he can go faster. You were under a lot of pressure. You didn't perform, you were kicked off.
What do you mean by success? Did you win?
Yeah.
So you basically just wiped the floor with everybody else? Ultimately.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that, mate, if that's how good you were.
But I think for the athlete themselves, nobody really kind of gives a shit about entertaining. It's a selfish thing.
Hang on. A competitive athlete wasn't going there to win it. Oh, well.
There was probably a thought in the back of my head, yeah.
So today we are joined by Triathlete Grant Sheldon. First and foremost, mate, I want to thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, mate. All good. Been all good on my end, yeah.
Mate, you know what it is? It's been ages since I want to get you on here. Because obviously for me, for people listening or watching, now I know that a lot of people are obsessed with people who can run marathons. It seems to be pretty much the in thing at the minute, doing long distance running, any kind of endurance sport or anything like that. But I want to take it back, and obviously I know you're from Scotland, but I want to go back into your childhood, mate, and like, why did you become one of the best triathletes in the world?
It's a good question, isn't it? And probably one without a real answer. It was never a goal. It was never a dream of mine, really. I started off as probably any kid did, outside a lot, playing a lot of sport in general. Kind of, dad was big into football at the time. Went down that route, wasn't very good. My mum got me into swimming, threw me in the swimming pool from a young age, and ended up going down that route really with the swimming. And I was never a particularly good swimmer either. There was always kids that were better than me, more kind of talented than me, but for one reason or another, and we could maybe get into it, but I just kept on doing it. Long story, short and kind of a whistle-stop tour with it, but I saw a triathlon in the Olympics back in 2004. So it was a while ago now, and I thought it looked cool. There was a girl, Emma Snowsill, and I remember it was quite a hilly course, and she was just absolutely killing it, and I thought, that looks super cool. And I remember at a really, really young age, before I get into the sport properly, trying to do it around my street, do a wee triathlon around my street, tried to get my friends and stuff to do it. Nobody was particularly keen, but yeah, it was something that I fell into really, and one thing led to another, and ended up making it a big part of my life for a long time.
It's a mad one, because I know certainly when I was a young age, I couldn't think of anything worse than running. I like playing football, I like doing all the usual stuff for kids, but like, I feel like if it wasn't a team thing, I didn't really want to know, which is weird because I've got friends now who are, boxers, Olympians and people like that, and they kind of were more driven to the solo aspect of it, and obviously you were. I know you're trying to bring friends in on the street and stuff, but I think doing something long distance or any kind of endurance sport, it's down to the person, isn't it? Like how much you can withstand, how much you can actually take physically. How supportive was your parents around that? Because obviously, again, you saw something at the Olympics, someone's performed amazing, and you're like, I think I can do that, or something I want to pursue. Now, the Olympics is like a dream, and obviously not many people get to experience that. So what was your support network like? Because from a parent's point of view, yeah, it's great if your kid wants to go to the Olympics or do these things, but there's probably, without sounding pessimistic, there's probably a unlikely chance of that actually happening.
100%. And listen, I had a very, very fortunate childhood. My parents lifted and laid me continuously, especially when I was kind of going up through those ranks as a young swimmer. Anyone that's had kids in the swimming world will will relate to it, but up early morning, parents are up early morning, taking you to the pool, bringing you back, going to school, after school, going back to the pool, going back to home. So they supported it 100%, to be honest, and I was very fortunate in that they allowed me to do that as long as I wanted to do it. I think there was a point I always look back to when I was quite young. I'm kind of going through the swimming, and I didn't want to do it for one reason or another. I was young, and it was probably a little bit hard at one point. I think my friend stopped doing it, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was my mum that kind of kept me at it.
You must have been good though. You must have been, because you know what I mean. Like, I mean, I get there's unconditional support, right, for your kids. But I've got a little girl, and if she wants to do anything, I'm gonna back her all the way. Like, there's no two ways about that. But I think there's also got to be a line of, actually, you're not that good at that. So did you have a natural flair? Did you have a talent for it?
Maybe ask them that.
Right.
I think, as a youngster, I never felt talented at anything. I honestly didn't think I was. And there was always people better, and maybe that's me kind of putting myself in putting myself to a high standard. I don't know. But I never felt as if I was really, really good. I was good, and I knew that I had a talent for working hard. I think that was one of my kind of key attributes, and it took me a very, very far with a sport like that. But I mean, did my parents think I was really good at it and kind of encourage me because of that, or did they just do it because I said I wanted to do it?
Have you ever asked them?
I'm not sure. I've never asked them. No.
Mate,
No,
you need to ask them.
I'm gonna ask them after this.
Oh, yeah, because I think it's really important to know that, because, I mean, either way it's lovely, whether they supported you because of your talent or because you're the son, ultimately. What were your friends like? I've asked you about your mum and dad, but your friends, because you said that when you were younger you wanted to get kids to come on the street and do that little triathlon with you, but they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
What were they like when you actually started to take this serious? Yo, what's happening, people? If you are liking the episode so far, make sure you click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also press the notification bell so you don't miss another episode.
Yeah, I guess I started to take it a little bit more seriously. So I didn't get into that. I did that little triathlon when I was maybe 8, 9, 10. And I then forgot about it for a while, kind of concentrated on the swimming. Just playing a little bit of football, that fell by the wayside. And I never got back into triathlon until I was about 14, 15 years old. So I was in high school at that time. Friends were not into that kind of thing, really. Like, they did a bit of sport, maybe kicked the ball around kind of thing. There was a few decent footballers at school and stuff, but nobody else really took sport very seriously, certainly as seriously as me. So I was always alone in that kind of thing, and for one reason or another I put a lot of importance in that throughout school, and yeah, that was my that was my priority, kind of going through school, and I guess friends supported that from afar, but I definitely kind of missed out on a lot of that stuff as well.
I suppose, though, it kept you on the right track, because I know that kids get up to no good. Do you know what I mean? You leave school, you're drinking in parks, you're doing all that type of stuff. I know you said when things got serious for you, that's when you kind of effectively understood who was supporting you, who wasn't, type of thing, and people who would support you, which was great. When did things start to get serious for you, Grant?
I've always been quite a serious person, and I don't think my kind of attitude ever changed from when I was really, really young. Like, I remember kind of being quite young in the sport, when I was doing swimming, and I used to get really pissed off with my coach if he wasn't training me hard enough.
Right.
I would get really annoyed with him because I was like, no, I need to work hard to get better. So that attitude never changed. But I guess when I realised that I was good at triathlon, like the success came quite quickly to me. I was maybe around 15, 16, probably close to 15. I did a couple of triathlons, and I was good at it for whatever reason. Obviously very fit, being a swimmer. I had kind of some what I would say is natural talent as a runner. My mum's side of the family were all kind of runners historically, so I had a little bit of a talent and fell into the sport quite naturally. And I guess that success, or that quick success, quickly kind of led me on to getting on the Scottish team. Made my first GB team very young, and it was at that kind of point where I started to think, oh, maybe this is a sport that I could take quite far.
You said you did a couple of triathlons and stuff, and you knew you had a talent for it. What do you mean by success? Did you win?
Yeah.
So you basically just wiped the floor with everybody else, ultimately.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that, mate, if that's how good you were. Did you feel like the gap in, in talent was massive? Or were you just nicking it?
So at that point, my first couple of triathlons, they were local triathlons. So I was competing against not necessarily many people my own age, but your kind of age group athlete, if you were, that are doing it for a bit of fun. They're your kind of weekend warrior. Mm-hmm. So I was competing against them in the first 2 or 3, and yeah, was quite far ahead of them.
You're just smoking them left, right, and centre.
But I mean, it probably doesn't say too much. When I started competing against my peers, it was more of a level playing field, but kind of certainly in Scotland, I was in the top kind of few around my age.
So just for people listening and watching, Grant, when you were stepping into that sphere and you realised you had a talent, you were beating the weekend warrior, and then you sort of levelled up, as you've just said. You understood there was a level playing field with other athletes and stuff, and top 10 in your country is still a massive achievement, mate. So congratulations for that, because that is, well, let's not beat around the bush here. And I'm sure there's hundreds or thousands of people who get into this sport. Not many people can, well, there's 10 people who can get in the top 10, right? So who were the guys that was smashing it in triathlon back then? Because it's a few years ago now, isn't it? So like, yeah. for you getting into that and kind of just to get people an understanding of, right, he was, top 10 in Scotland, but who else was the guys, like Team GB? Who were the main guys to look at then?
Yeah, so at that time, top 10 in Scotland didn't mean much. Mm-hmm. So the sport's grown a lot. Now, yeah, it's pretty decent. Back then, it really didn't mean much, and I did appreciate that at the time, and I knew that it was a big fish in a small pond kind of scenario.
So you're in Scotland, you're one of the best, you've kind of rise up the ranks. I guess the only form of progression really is to Team GB, I'm assuming. How did that come about? And can you remember what it was like getting your call up or your debut for Team GB?
Yeah, so I remember it was the GB Super Series, it was called at the time, and it was great because a lot of the kind of top senior athletes were kind of forced to do it by the governing body, so it let us kind of junior athletes race against them, something that they don't do anymore, which I think they should bring back, but that's another story. So it was one of those races that was a qualifier for the European Junior Champs. I was my first year, so you get 3 years as a junior. I was my first year as a junior. And I didn't really think too much of it. It was just a case of rocking up to this race. I'd done a few of them before, not many, but a few. And the race went on, and I remember just before it, a couple of the other Scottish guys telling me, "Oh, this is European qualifiers." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I never really thought that it was something that I was going to do, being a kind of first year junior. So the race went on, and I found myself in the run, running with the guy, the junior athlete that was in the lead, and we were running together for most of the 5K run. He ended up beating me that day, but I was second, and another Scottish lad was third. And it so happened that three of us were in our first year junior, and we kind of went through that for the next 3 years. But that was my first kind of experience, so crossing that line and realising, all right, I'm going to go to kind of European Junior Champs, which was pretty cool at a young age.
And can you remember when you did go to the Junior Champs? What was that like? In terms of everything you'd built, or anything you'd ever trained for, what's the difference in terms of feeling? Like, it's the world stage, innit? So, like, what's the difference in terms of level, ability, skill? Like, when you're rubbing shoulders with these type of athletes, like, did you feel imposter syndrome? Did you know you were good enough? Well, clearly you were, but do you know what I mean? Like, what was going through your mind? How were you as a lad at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been the kind of most confident, but at the same time, I don't think I really thought about it too much. Like, I wasn't going there to try and win it. That wasn't what I was trying to do. I
bet you were.
Rightly wrong.
I bet
well,
you were.
Maybe.
Hang on. A competitive athlete wasn't going there to win it. Oh,
there was probably a thought in the back of my head. Yeah, but I didn't plan to. You know, I didn't prepare to. I was very much, you've made the team, go and kind of experience it. But I do remember going to that champs, and the seniors were doing the champs at the same time, and going to the pool and seeing all these athletes that I used to watch on the telly, and then seeing them in the flesh, which is cool. But then I remember when we were kind of practicing in the course the few days prior to the race, and looking at all these European athletes, and they'd all shaved their legs, they were all tanned, and I remember feeling so intimidated by it. Cause this young, pasty white Scottish lad
with your grizzly legs and all
that. Hairy legs, and looking at all these guys and just looking absolutely chiseled, and then feeling that intimidation factor.
But how did you fare with that?
So I had a good start to the race. Swim went well. I was the top kind of 2 or 3 out of the water, and I found it pretty easy at the time, which was cool. But I ended up, there was 4 of us that broke away out to swim onto the bike, and the lad in front of me ended up, his front wheel fell out of his bike. Still don't know how it happened. He came down, I went over the top of him, and ended up breaking my elbow. So that was my first race, first experience.
It's an experience, mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you were going through these ranks and when you were kind of going through your career, Grant, I'm assuming, obviously, at that level, you're going to have nutritionists on board, you're going to be sort of working with the best, you're going to be dialing that right in. I could be wrong, I don't know how detailed that is. But were you always living clean in terms of diet? Or was that some, because I'd imagine, I know certain athletes myself who literally, when they're not competing, they just eat like shit, being honest. And then as soon as it's time to, they've got a certain event coming up, a certain comp or whatever it may be, just flip that switch and that's it. You'll get the other side of people who live like an athlete even when they're not performing. How were you?
So triathlon was a lot more amateur when I was coming through the ranks. I mean, we did get support, so in kind of Olympic funded sports, you'll get various kind of like sports institutes, and they give you your kind of nutritionist, your S&C guy, your physiologist, psychologist, all this kind of external support. So we did have that, but how much we kind of made use of it was probably quite limited. Having said that, kind of me as an athlete, I was always a very curious athlete. I was always thinking about what I was doing and kind of why I was doing it and how I could get better. So kind of throughout my career, I tried a bunch of things, and I was always trying to find that right, where can I find that kind of next edge to get better and kind of try and beat my competitors.
What was the pinnacle of your career? What did you reach? 'Cause I know we had a chat earlier, but I remember there was a point in your career when you were effectively fourth in the world, weren't you?
Yeah, that was my best race.
I think you're very modest, Grant, because I know you don't like to claim that, but I think that's where you did achieve that in your best race. There was a point where you were fourth in the world. And I feel like you'll try and brush that away and be like, well, I wasn't fourth in the world technically, but you were.
Yeah.
So when you're at that level, right, how much difference realistically is from the fourth position to being top in the world? Are we talking seconds? Are we talking 1% marginal gains? Are we talking, light years ahead?
I think the winner was maybe 10, 15 seconds in front over an hour race. So you can work out the percentage if you want, but there's not much in it. Yeah. There is not much in it. To be honest, there's not much really physiologically to separate the kind of maybe top 10 to 20 guys, I would say.
And the reason I ask you that question, Grant, is because for me, right now, I think it's amazing. That achievement is phenomenal. It really is. It's massive. And like you, I'd imagine when you were racing at that level, you just want to win. You just want to be number one, right? And for me, I'm not into this like fourth place trophy shit. Like I'm not. Like I'm being honest. Like I feel like unless you're first, doesn't matter, right? And I know that can be quite a nihilistic approach, or that can be quite a negative approach to things, because ultimately it may stop you even from taking part if you don't feel like you're going to win. So again, I would never take that away from you, because it's a phenomenal achievement. I feel like, a lot of people are going to really want something like that on their CV or resume, if you like. But for me, to not get that number one spot, how much did that crush you?
I went through my career, and you asked me 2 minutes ago what my kind of the pinnacle of my career was, and I don't think I ever reached it, and it hurts. That's a tough thing to kind of reconcile with. I trained with the best guys in the world. I know what kind of standard they were at, what numbers they were doing, and I know that I was on a par with that on my best days. And putting that together in a race was a challenge that I never worked out throughout my career. I had good results for sure, but I never had that performance that I thought, that was reflective of the training that I've done.
Why do you think that's the case?
Triathlon as a sport is so many things can go wrong. So many things can go. There's just so many moving parts to it, and kind of reflecting now. Kind of mentioned a little while ago how serious I was as a youngster, and how much I kind of thought through things, and I guess there's probably two different things to that answer. The first part was I think I overthought a lot of things and put a lot of pressure on myself and didn't relax and enjoy it. On the odd occasion, I did relent and enjoy the process. I performed so much better. So I think that was a big part of it. Just the kind of mental game going into these races to kind of get that performance out. And I think it did hinder me kind of quite a lot. But then the other aspect of it, kind of going back to my junior days really, I trained a lot. I trained an awful lot. And I went through my kind of junior career being fitter than probably pretty much any other junior athlete in the world. and it was great at the time. I could get myself out of a lot of trouble, but I never learned the skills. And then when everybody else kind of grows up and you're already at your peak and everybody's on a more level playing field, these skills become a lot more important. And I was playing catch up as a kind of older athlete on a lot of those skills. So I think it's twofold.
It's really interesting you say that, because the analogy that came to my mind there straight away, it's almost like your ladder was against the wrong wall. So you're climbing this mountain or you're climbing this building, and if you just positioned that ladder on a different part of the building, you might have got the top quicker. When you said it's something that kind of you feel like you never reach your pinnacle, it must be crushing. Like I'm not trying to, do you know what I mean? Like, because for me, how old are you now, Grant?
I'll be 30 next week.
You'll be 30 next week. So it's almost like you feel like you're probably too old to go back to that to prove your point. So you almost feel like you've missed the window, but when you were in the window, you didn't take full advantage. But it wasn't the fact that you didn't take advantage. There was just maybe things you didn't practice what you should have. What do you feel like could have happened for you to have practiced those things that you maybe lacked?
You know, it's a lot of these things you kind of, and listen, I'm not being negative. I did have a good career, and looking back, I am proud of it. But kind of being real, that obviously you want to be the best, as we spoke about, and a lot of these things I learned upon reflection. And it's brilliant. I mean, I can take that forward for the rest of my life. Those lessons that I kind of learned, I can pass that on to other people. Brilliant. But could I have changed that at the time? I don't know. I think you're a kind of a product of your experience, and you only know what you know. I could have went about things a little bit differently, but there was at no point where I didn't try hard enough, or I didn't put enough thought into something. So I can't really have a regret with that. I tried my best. There was some things that I didn't work out. But that's, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't kind of regret that. I think it's just the way that it kind of happened.
I think that's a very, very positive mindset to have, because I think there's certain things that I've tried to accomplish or tried to achieve or have achieved, and I always look for, it could have went better, but I could have just did that bit more. And I always feel like I've left something on the table. That's just because I'm so hungry. Like, even doing a podcast, mate, like, I want the podcast to be the best podcast out there. I don't want to just have a podcast. I don't just want to be another guy who's got a podcast. I don't want that. I want to have real valuable conversations and actually help people. Like, I'm asked about that. Same as me business, mate, the Content PT. Like, when I'm filming people, you know yourself, obviously, might as well mention, obviously, people who don't know you are a client of mine as well, Grant. And when I'm with you, it's not about creating content for Instagram or social media. It's about actually understanding what you want to achieve, because I want you to perform so bad. Like, I want to win so fucking bad with you. I need to have that kind of, what's the word for it? I need that back. I need that energy back from my clients. And that's why I'm very selective with who I work with. You've got the winner's mentality, and you've got that dog in you. And I can tell. I know what you like. And I feel like with you going through that journey, and this is why I say it's amazing, but it must be crushing because you didn't get that number one spot. But I'm very interested to know how much difference that number one spot would have made. So for the people who don't know the world of triathlon, and people, I know that again, I know a lot of people who are in triathlon, myself now. What's the financials rewards when you're going through that? Because were you skint?
Yes.
all your career? And how was it like looking at the guys who were maybe, again, 15 seconds better? We're talking about margins here, but maybe he's got a better financial reward. They could travel the world. They were getting sponsorships.
Yeah, there was a big discrepancy in the sport. From 10th to 15th in the world, you're scraping by. So let's talk about prize money in a race, for example. All these races are in every corner of the world, which is brilliant. I mean, you get to see the world, which is super, super cool. But by the time you add up the flights, hotel, etc., and then you finish in top 10 in the world, you're breaking even from a kind of race winning scenario. And obviously that's not the only kind of money you can get. Obviously sponsorships and some kind of big ticket races, but there was a real difference between that kind of level of athlete, so the level of athlete that I guess I was, compared to the best in the world who are kind of raking in millions, compared to the other.
So it literally goes from being 10th to 15th, skint.
Yeah.
Few places ahead of you could be millionaires.
Yeah.
That's frightening, that, like, isn't it? Yeah. And that's why it's so important to be the best in this industry as well, because if you're not anything but the best, you're going to be skint. So how are these athletes funding themselves? Is it all family support? Because I know that, I mean, bikes and stuff alone are 10, 20 grand. So, like, you're skint or breaking even, you're still at the top of your game, but you're just not them few places ahead. How are you affording this lifestyle? How are you affording your nutrition, your training without your sponsorships? How is that even possible? Do you have because I'm assuming you can't have a full-time job.
You can't have a job at all.
So how does that work?
So if you get to a level in an Olympic sport in the UK, then you get what's called UK lottery funding. And essentially the government gives you a few quid to go and kind of do your sport.
What's a few quid?
So I get 15 grand a year. When you kind of look into that, that's not a lot of money.
No, it's not at all, is it? I think the average. I mean, I think I seen something the other day about if you're living on 30 grand a year, you're struggling.
Yeah.
So 15 grand.
And this was a few years ago, so it was
a little bit more,
but it was still nothing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I had a couple of sponsors give me a few quid, and some race winnings. And at the end of the year, so I had 1 or 2 good years where I was in the positive, made a bit of money. The vast majority of the years I was breaking even or in the negative. Yeah.
I know that you've got a championship. You're an athlete. You've got the winner's mentality. I know that there's goals, right? It's not always financial, but due to that financial stress, or I mean, I don't know. You might have been supported by your parents. I'm asking you, but did you ever feel like throwing the towel in because of that?
No.
So you would be prepared to be skint to be number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I maybe I was foolishly positive, but I mean, probably going back to kind of my childhood, like I had parents that if shit did hit the fan, I don't doubt that they would have supported me.
Yeah.
You know, so I had a safety net. But I had kind of the positive outlook that I could make money later on. You know. I'd be able to figure it out. If I needed money, I could figure that out. But yeah, I guess at the time I just wanted to kind of experience the sport and try and do everything I could to kind of be as good as I could be. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. So, for me personally, when I was growing up, certainly when I picked up a camera when I was 18, 19-year-old, I was absolutely skint, mate, for 10 years. I was at uni, I was in different jobs, I was working all over the place, literally up and down the country, doing work for free. For about 10 years I did free graph, mate. So because I was doing all this free graph, filming musicians and singers and creating content for people and all that, a lot of people on the outside thought, oh, he's with this celebrity or that guy or this guy's film content with him. And a lot of these guys thought, he's clearly got money ads, he's doing all right. I was absolutely broke, mate, genuinely, mate. But that gave me so, like, I'll never forget that feeling. That's why now, like, I'm so hungry. You've got no idea. And for the last 6 years, business has been very well. I'm very grateful. But I still feel the same as what I did when I was 19-year-old. at my mum's house, in my bedroom, editing content for people, skint. Do you feel like, and I want to ask you this personally because you always had a safety net or a shit hit the fan fund. Do you think that could have killed a bit of your competitive nature?
Because of the safety net?
Yeah.
You know, I've thought about this a lot as well. And I think different athletes respond different, or different people respond different. It's a people thing, isn't it? And, you know, for me, kind of going through the sport and kind of putting it to so being part of the kind of GB team, you were under a lot of pressure. You didn't perform, you were kicked off. And I never responded well to that. One of my biggest challenges through the sport was putting too much pressure on myself, and when pressure was kind of piled upon that, whether that kind of financial pressure or pressure from kind of governing bodies, I struggled with that. I did. So I think if things were more secure, I'd have probably, me personally, I'd have probably did better. I do get other people that, no, they need that fight. For me, I think I had enough fight. I needed to be more relaxed. I needed to be more chilled out.
If you don't know by now, I run a business called The Content PT. I create content for influencers, PTs, online coaches and fitness brands all around the world. So if you are someone who's in need for sexy content for your social media, or you really want to maintain a competitive edge in your industry, drop me a DM on Instagram. So it's interesting you say that about how you would have responded if you had more security, funding, etc. You might have performed better. What's typical in triathlon? What's typical? Do you find that the top guys are well funded? I don't mean because of their winning potential or winning earnings or whatever. I'm talking about in general. Do you feel like the ones who are performing better in general are the ones who are buying the nice bikes? They've got mum and dad money. They've got all that type of stuff.
I'm not sure. I think triathlon is a sport, and this is a big problem with the sport. There's a financial barrier to it. Mm-hmm. Even from a young age, you need to have financial support to start it. I mean, bikes at the very, very lowest end are costing hundreds of pounds. Mm-hmm. A bike that you need to compete at any kind of level is in the thousands, you know. So I don't think you get many people in the sport that don't have a level of funding behind them. I do think it's a problem with the sport. So it's hard to tell, because I don't think anybody in the sport is particularly poor. Hard done to. Yeah.
It's so funny you said that, because for the listeners or viewers who are watching this, you showed us a pair of trainers that you're running, and you said these are about 300 quid alone. And I asked you, I said, how important are them? And you went, the night and day difference. Like, you can't really compete unless you've got a pair of these on. For me, instantly, that would put me off. It's not like boxing, where it's a poverty sport, really. You can just lace up a pair of gloves, get in your local gym, and go for it. You don't really need the best equipment. Of course, there's certain things to get marginal gains, that 1% and all the rest of it. There's different types of tech now to measure your punches and all that type of stuff. But with this, there's kind of if you ain't got 300 quid for a pair of trainers, forget about it. Level to it now. For me, that's quite sad for a sport, because I feel like it's going the wrong way. Do you think it's getting worse with that type of stuff? Do you think it's more predicated on ability to money ratio than what it used to be?
Yes, for sure. Bikes are getting better, running shoes are getting better, wetsuits, etc., etc. I think there is maybe a little bit. It's hard to know from a kind of support side of, like, young athletes kind of coming through, what support they get. I've not been there for a while, so I don't know what it's like now. But with the kit and stuff, it definitely is. Like, something I always say, so triathlon was my job, running was my passion. That's what I truly enjoyed. And it was only a few years ago. So running used to be exactly like that with boxing. There was no barrier to entry. You could lace up the cheapest pair of shoes and you could go out and run and you could do exactly what the kind of top athletes in the world were doing. And that £300 pair of shoes, like, that suddenly put that barrier in a sport that was really pure. And so triathlon, there's always been that kind of financial element to it. So while maybe it's getting worse and it's a frustrating thing, it's always been like that. So for me, it's not it just is what it is kind of thing. But for running, something that was a really pure sport and now isn't as pure, that really frustrates me.
Well, I think you see this massively in the fitness industry now because it's fashion. It's part of fashion now, isn't it? It's trendy. So it's Instagram. It's very hip. It's the thing to do. Like if you're putting your Alpha Flies on, you're lacing them up, you're wearing a free train vest, you've got your gels, you've got your new shade, your new whatever shades that they're wearing, the ski. I feel like I am a dad, but I feel like a proper dad now. Like you've got them mad shades, you've got them on. You've got the latest Beats or AirPods on, or the Air Maxes now, which everyone's wearing. You've got to have your Garmin. You've got to have your 10 grand bike, and then you're doing these random routes. You're banging them on Strava. You're flexing. It's all like, it's weird because, I mean, it's great as well because there's a lot of people who now want to start running that never would have because it's cool. But then there's also the barrier to entry. And I guess the question I'm asking you, Grant, ultimately is, as I'm sitting across from a triathlete who's been at the top of the triathlete world, will having more money make you a better athlete?
Yes.
It's mad to hear that, you know, because I understand there's still a level of skill. You can't just be someone who's never trained bang on a pair of Alpha Flies or whatever they're called. But at the same time, even to hear that's quite frightening. Because if I had no money and my daughter wanted to get into that, I'd be like, let's avoid it. Which is quite sad because that could be actually her underlying passion. Yet she would never get a chance to experience that. And how many kids around the world are going through that now? And I feel like sports need to be more pure because it gives more people, you know, it's not about a competitive edge in terms of equipment. It's a level playing field. You get a chance to outshine other people if your skill's there. Now, yes, skill's still got to be there, of course, but ultimately the tools that you've got for that skill can make you that 1% better. And in your case, mate, 15 seconds can go from being skint or a millionaire, which is frightening.
Yeah.
Were you ever approached by sponsors?
Sorry?
Were you ever approached by sponsors or anything?
Yeah, I had a few sponsors throughout the years.
Did they pay well?
Okay.
Doesn't want to disclose this information, guys.
No, I'll be very honest.
Secret millionaire here, guys. No, that's...
It was a few thousand a year, you know, which was good. I was very grateful for it.
And the reason you probably think, why are you asking this like questions on that? Because again, I feel like a lot of people who want to get into this don't understand. And while I'm sitting with someone who's did it, I understand it's relative. Times have changed, and there's maybe more funding or less funding from the National Lottery and these type of people. But what were your career earnings like? You don't have to talk to the... Do you know what I mean? Like, were you better than average? Were you rich? Was it, you know, at the peak of where you reach? Now, bear in mind, 4th in the world. What kind of money did you make? If you could round it up to like over a year, you know what I mean? Like I made this much in a year. Because this is going to give people hope or piss them off.
I think I was average, and I earned average over my career. I think it maybe averaged, if I looked at my bank account after that over a decade in the sport, it was 4 figures.
4 figures?
Yeah.
That's mad, that.
Yeah. And you know, there was money coming in, but there was a big chunk of money going out as well.
Do you know what's crazy? And again, so there's 2 ways I look at that, right? I look at that as that's amazing because it shows your dedication, regardless of the finance. And I think that's really nice to have. I think that's important to understand that the love for you wanting to improve yourself and be part of a sport like that. You didn't do it for the money, clearly, because you wouldn't have stuck around for that many years. But at the same time, it's quite sad to think that even if someone has a career as illustrious as you, or as colourful, or as brilliant as what you've had, because there's only a few people who've had better. Realistically, I understand over time there's been hundreds, but at that period of time, it's quite. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's funny, and you kind of chat about it now, and you can go two ways, can't you? You can be bitter about it and be like, "Oh, I should have earned X number of pounds, whatever." But I think, like, for me, sport's always been quite a pure pursuit.
I understand that, like.
I would rather nobody earned anything than everybody earned a lot. Well, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe it'd be brilliant if everybody earned a lot. But one of the big frustrations that listen, sports entertainment at the end of the day, and that's how it makes money. That's how it makes big companies money. That's how it makes athletes money. It's entertainment, and people want to see it. But I think for the athlete themselves, this is me speaking personally, but I would imagine most would feel the same. It's not about entertainment. Nobody really kind of gives a shit about entertaining.
It's not looked
the
at the
person
same
on the telly.
It's not looked at the same, is it?
It's a selfish thing.
Yeah.
I want to do sport because I want to be better.
Yeah,
I want to beat the guy next to me, maybe, or I just want to improve myself. And can you really be paid for that?
The thing is, Grant, this is what's frightening, I believe, in that particular sport. I mean, I get it. You can argue in any sport if he can knock someone out, he's going to get different fights or whatever. Or in football, you might get 10 members of the same team, and the wages are going to vary, but they're going to there's definitely going to be a difference in wages, but you're not getting someone who's absolutely skint on the same team. And to think Team GB, you could be sitting in a room, all for the same team, and the guy sitting next to you could be 6 seconds faster than you, and be a multi-millionaire, and you could be absolutely broke. That isn't good, I don't think.
Yeah. It's it's something I never really thought of.
Did you ever? I know you never thought of it, but did you ever? I know it's gonna sound mad, but did you ever look at someone and think, "You jammy bastard"? Like, because you remember you've said today that you feel like you didn't reach your full potential, and you trained with the best, and you could have beat the best. So to think some of them guys have become well off financially and gone on to do, they've got ultimately they're at retirement level if they want. Yeah, you've got a business now, which I want to get onto, but did that never bother you?
There's a lot of luck in sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of luck. There's talent's an element, working hard's an element for sure. But you also need to be lucky. You need to meet the right people. You need to have the right opportunities at the right times. Can you be annoyed about the level of luck that you had versus the level of luck somebody else had? Yes, you can, and probably it did frustrate me at times, but at the same time, I was very lucky. Like, I got to race at a level like I know a lot of the guys that I trained with, that I grew up through the sport, would have dreamt of competing and would have dreamt to be in the position that I was. So I can't really be bitter about that or think that I was unlucky in any way. Like, I was very lucky, and I did do well. I didn't do as well as I think I could have, and there was a big difference in a number of things with that kind of small step up. But it was what it was, and I had so many good experiences. So many experiences that I've learned from and kind of grown as a person kind of through. That would I change it? Probably not.
And I suppose you've getting to travel the world and do things through it as well. It's not all about money. It's definitely not all about money, but I think it's about winning and trying to prove it to yourself. And obviously everyone's got kind of a point where they exit the sport or go on to other things. And I know that personally. I know what you do with your business, coaching, and I know that you're an unbelievable coach and you're very knowledgeable, you got that much value, you can educate anybody, and I definitely think you're underpriced. So I'm not. That's not an insult. I think you're underpriced. I do, and I think anybody, and I mean this, if you're in the world of triathlon, endurance sport, elite sport, any kind of, even if you want to get good at this thing, running, swimming, biking, and I mean this, mate, Granty guy, if you're watching, I'll leave a link, mate, to your page or whatever, because I feel like when I see someone like yourself who's actually it's almost like it's too good to be true to have access to someone like you as a coach's perspective, because a lot of these guys they're above it. Let's face it, they're doing this thing, they're making money elsewhere. It's the entertainment, it's almost showbiz. You know what I mean? It's not boots on the ground helping real people achieve real things. And I guess it takes someone like you to go through that to be in the position to give out that knowledge. So again, it's unbelievable. One thing I want to talk about, Grant, was I think people like yourself are absolute maniacs. When I say that, I mean from a long distance or endurance sport, when you're in them hurt locker scenarios, like I know you've mentioned on some of your content that you've been posting. What is it truly like when you're in, the dog end of a race or a swim or a bike, and you're thinking, it's not just I've got 100 yards to go, I've got miles to go. Like, I think there's a big difference. Like, when I do a 5K, mate, I'm trying to get me 5K to about 24 minutes. And when I hit 25, I'm like, I'm actually getting angry towards the end. I'm like, I might as well turn it off now, because I might as well stop, because I know I'm not going to beat it. Is there any point in even running at this point? I know it's a bad mentality to have, but I want to win so much. I feel like that's what sometimes can stifle my own potential. What conversations do you have with yourself when you're in the hurt locker?
So I think there's two different parts to that. There's one aspect is racing, and racing's, with a bit of experience, it's quite easy. From a mental point of view, once you've started, very, very hard up until that point to get in the right headspace to kind of go through that process of nerves, of kind of anticipation, of a little bit of dread at times, and fear. But once the race starts, for me, it was always a very simple process, and I didn't think too much whenever I was racing about that, about how hard it was, about how much I was hurting. It almost kind of dissipates. You don't really feel the pain, as it were. There's just a switch.
But there must be when your legs are burning, you feel like your lungs are gonna explode. You know what I mean? You're almost feeling sick, or
yeah. But you're in a race. You're in a race, and think of it in a kind of like in a more primal way. So you've been chased by a lion, for example. Are you thinking about how sore your legs are? No, you're just trying to run as fast as you can away from that lion.
Do you think about that though? Do you think about things? I know that sounds crazy. Do you think about I'm getting chased by a lion?
No. For me, being in a race is, I get this. I imagine I've never been chased by a lion, but I imagine you get the same kind of level of arousal to a point where you do what you can do. You go to that place of, right, well, I can either do it or I can't, and the pain, the kind of hurt doesn't really come into question at that point. You're just going as hard as you can. If the guy next to you can go faster, he can go faster. But
are you ever physically in pain where you're like, I feel like I can't make this finish line? Like, I feel like it's... So the question I'd ask is, you weren't running hard enough, right? That's what I'd say. Yeah. If you didn't feel like... Because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. If you're in a scenario where you feel like this is okay and I don't get them feelings and I'm just... If he's faster or better, then fair enough. If you're not putting yourself in that mindset, did you really push yourself?
Yes.
Do you think?
The only way I think you can experience it is to be in that primal situation. And literally, that kind of almost life or death scenario.
Yeah, but you're not putting yourself in that situation.
I know, but my head was.
Right, okay.
Like, that's where my body was reacting. So it wasn't a painful thing. It was literally like it hurt. Of course it hurt, but the pain was never going to be enough to make you kind of change what you were doing. Now, the other side to that is training. And training sucks. I mean, I love training. I love that aspect of it, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. And you've not got the same kind of emotions as you are in a race. And those thoughts do go through your head.
So do you feel like training's harder?
100%.
Because you don't have that same motivation. I get that. Like,
yeah, it's
because you've always got the fuck it off switch, haven't you? In your training.
Yeah, 100%. So it's hard in that aspect. Racing's hard in the it's horrible in the kind of days leading up to race where you kind of just want it to be there, to be over. But then easy during it. Training, I mean, it's a daily thing. Like, it's your life. So you get to a point where you're not really thinking about, I can't be arsed doing this. I mean, it's probably a continual thought, to be honest. But you do it. You know that you're always going to do it. It's not a choice. You don't give yourself that choice. It's just, well, I've got swimming this morning, right? I'm going to do this and try as hard as I can. I'm going to bike later, do the same thing, and then run after it. Like, so while it was hard, it became a habit. It became routine, and just something that you did throughout your day. That was hard work.
It's interesting that, like, because I feel like the training thing is, when you haven't got that almost external motivation, because there's nothing attached to it. You're going to put yourself in that hurt locker for no reason. Are you really going to do that? But you need to train like you do.
It is, something that's fascinating.
Because it's not like you're sparring where you can have a big heavyweight to come and dish you around the ring for a bit, where you physically have to survive. Yeah. And then you've got a fight coming up, so you get someone to kind of replicate how you. Whereas this, it's you on you, so it's like.
It's like a sadistic addiction.
I know, because even like I'm doing these 5Ks, and I know it's now, but for me, they're still hard. Just a commitment point of view to constantly do them, constantly do. And it's like, you get to that point where you're like, don't get me wrong, mate, I don't come off and I'm not gassed anymore, which is nice. It's like, I can do them. And then it's like, well, where does this end then? Because do I just do 10Ks every day? Do you do 20? Like, where does that physically end? And then I feel like, because I don't have the motivation, I'm doing it for a different reason. It's almost like, it's weird because you've got to find something in you, haven't you? Like, and I do these random games in my head. Like, when I'm running, I'll do these random things like, right, well, just count to 200 steps 3 more times. Do you know? And I'll go, right, when the next 3 tracks end. You know what I do? This is crazy, this. So, if I'm on a treadmill and I'm running and I'm getting a bit knackered, I'll even focus on a different point of the wall. And I'll make like 4 or 5 points in my head, right? And I'll go, right, in 2 minutes' time, I can change my direction of view. How weird's that? Just to give myself difference to get us through. It's a run. Yeah. If that's attached to TV, cameras, potential sponsorships, money, family, people letting down, like, I don't know if I could take that kind of responsibility. That's why I think you've got to be a psychopath to do it.
Yeah, and it was a very selfish pursuit. I didn't really care about other people. Kind of during it, it was for me, and it was only for me, and I played the exact same games during my training, but I think there's a level of kind of you become conditioned to it. You become almost addicted to the training, in that, like, I know if I missed a few days, I would maybe not want to do it in the days leading up, and then miss a few days, and I had to do it. I had to go out and run. I had to work hard, and that was kind of with me from a young age. If I wasn't working hard, something was missing.
You need that though, mate. And again, this is why you've become such a good coach, because you've got that. You can't. You either have it or you don't. I don't think you can make that. I think people can bullshit people and try and say you can train that into you. And nah, I think you've got it or you haven't. Like, you're either wired that way or you're not. You clearly were. You were trying to group people up for triathlons when you were 9-year-old, mate. You've got to remember that's something that's literally lived on till you're 29. What was the exit point for you? Because 29, when did you realise there was nothing else you could do in the sport?
Yeah, so my best year in the sport was 2016, which is 8 years ago now. So it's a fair bit of time ago. I was 21, 22. I got better as an athlete from that point, but and then I had a few races that were good, but never to the same kind of level as that year. And it was always trying to find my way kind of back to that point, or better, because that 2016, it was really what felt like a starting point, and it was a fight. It was a fight. As any athlete goes through, you go through hard times. Like, stuff happens. I fell off my bike a lot and broke a lot of bones. And it was always kind of trying to get back from those kind of low points. And I was getting older, and that selfishness became a little bit of a drain on me. I didn't want to keep on being quite so selfish.
Do you think it had sacrifices? Like,
Yeah.
point where it was affecting relationships and all that?
It probably had the potential to, if I kept on kind of going down that route. But it was more of a personal thing, though. Nobody kind of put that external pressure on. It was just, I didn't want to be that selfish anymore, and I was being so selfish for literally no return. There was nothing kind of external coming in, and it didn't feel good because I wasn't necessarily performing to the level that I wanted to perform. So it was kind of coming up to that point where it felt like, I probably need to move on from this dream, this what I was kind of working towards. And I was, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, but I ended up with a bad injury at the start of 2023, so about 18 months ago now, which kind of took me out of the sport for 4 or 5 months, and kind of I was explained what was wrong and how long it would take to kind of get back, and it was quite a natural point of just saying, nah, I'm not coming back from that. I'm done. It kind of gave me the nudge.
Do you regret triathlon? Do you regret doing it?
No.
And the reason I want to ask you that, the reason I've asked you that, Grant, is, again, I think it's unbelievable what you've achieved. I really do. I think it's very inspiring. I think a lot of people listening to podcasts like this and, hearing yourself speak will get into the sport. I think it's healthy for the sport when you get more of that. But then the other side of us thinks, if it was me, I get you can go down the route of, well, I got to experience stuff and I was at a good level. In my mind, and I guess you don't know until you know, but I'd be like, I wish I was the best. I wish I was financially free from that situation. I wish I'd creamed that sport and became a great. And again, that's not taking anything away from you, because you've done amazing things. But for me, I think I would look at it almost a resentment, to be like, I can't believe I dedicated my life. I was selfish. I did this and I didn't get to where, and it could all be ended over a fucking injury. And I guess it's like anything in life, right? But for me, I don't know. Do you get what I'm getting at? Like,
and I'll tell you what I do regret. Mm-hmm. I regret. So I went down a rabbit hole of, I was pretty good at something, but I don't think it was the thing that I could have been the best at. And triathlon. So the triathlon that I focused on was the kind of short course, as it's called, which is your kind of sprint distance and your Olympic distance triathlon. So if you watched it in the Olympics, it was that kind of distance, and I was good at it. But I think my kind of natural ability was more suited to longer stuff, and because I experienced a level of success at that shorter distance, but I never quite got to where I wanted to, I think I chased it for too long. And I wish my regret, I guess, is that I didn't say, right, well, that's the success there. Let's move on and do what I believe I would have been really, really good at.
It's really nice. It's really nice to think that you could have, it's nice that you've got an understanding of that, because I feel like that's what a lot of people probably struggle with. I know guys personally who can't watch certain fights back, or can't watch because it's disturbed them that much, and to have that awareness and think, I could have creamed it then, I didn't, but now I'm on to doing this coaching business and everything you've got going on now, you've kind of got the best out of both worlds. Do you know what I mean? You've built something for yourself which is unbelievable. Yeah, you didn't get to the top spot, but you still did well in the industry. Final question. Do you recommend the sport of triathlon to people?
100%. 100%. As I've kind of gone through the sport, and something that I guess I began to love and really found was, you're doing an endurance sport, you get to see, you go out on a bike ride, you go out a run, you go swim, you can do that in such cool places. You can see parts of the country that people don't really go out of their way to see. I always remember kind of going out on the bike and climbing up the kind of local hills and looking down at the town and just thinking, God, the number of people that are sitting there in their houses and their offices that probably very, very rarely, if ever, kind of experienced views and kind of places like that. So what the sport gives you in my eyes is, there's the competitive part. You can do triathlons, brilliant. And it's good to kind of align yourself to a goal to get better, and etc. But the true kind of value of it, I think, is that it gives you the fitness, it gives you the ability to go and explore and go and have fun. You can do, by training triathlon, you can do any endurance event that you want. You can go out at the weekend and kind of go exploring and kind of have fun in the hills or the forest, or go and swim in the sea, and all these things that I think is really cool. Maybe other people don't, but that's what I think it gives you, and that's why I would encourage people to do it.
Grant, you've been an unbelievable guest. Thank you so much for coming on the ContentCAST, mate. Honestly, it's appreciated.
No, much appreciated. Thanks for that.
Thank you, bro. Cheers, mate.